any user who has access to Pega, we call them as operators. Access group, it defines which application, which portal he can access. It also holds something called as roles. Role gives granular control over the functionality. Using a role like a flag variable in your code, you decide whether you want to give access to certain set of people or not. Role to object is an extension to the role. At different environment levels, you can control the access of like opening the cases, opening the rules, executing the reports, and all those things. Privilege, in role to object you will give privileges, and in certain rules like flows, activities, and few rule types you can give a privilege. So only people with that privilege can execute the rule, the rest cannot execute. Portal, the web page that you see when you log in, is called as a portal. Okay. Then you spoke about enterprise class structure or situational layer cake, which is the foundation for every application in Pega, which means that every application should be built in this pattern, that is 4 different layers or 4 different classes. What do you know, why you're trying to do this? What you're trying to achieve is reusability of code across applications. So the topmost layer is organization layer, which contains the most generic code, and the bottommost layer is implementation layer, which contains the most specific code of your application. In between you have division and framework. So division layer contains code which is generic at that particular division, like HR, IT, and all. Framework, irrespective of organization division, if you have anything generic for your application, you put it in the framework layer. Pega sells many frameworks. If your project requirement suits the framework that is being sold by Pega, you can purchase it and you can use it. If you purchase a framework, like 70% of your work is already built in, the rest you have to customize and you can deliver to your clients. Not always we purchase frameworks, we build our own frameworks. Okay? And framework layer is not mandatory, it's optional. Okay, so this is what we have discussed so far. Any questions still here, guys? Okay, if not, we'll go ahead and we'll start with stages. So once you log into your, once you start building a new application, as Pega is a BPM product, the first thing that we build is case lifecycle, a workflow. So first thing that we build is a workflow. Okay, so once I'm in my dev studio or designer studio, the place where developer is going to build, okay, you have to go to case types. Once you install the software, I'll give you a walkthrough of the whole portal again, guys. Okay, so most probably in day after tomorrow session or tomorrow session we'll be doing it. We create the life cycle of the case first. So this is what you build first, an outline, the whole life cycle you're going to design. So how do you design it and what is it called? We'll see. So this is the life cycle, which we call it as stages in Pega. Okay, we call this as a case type rule. This whole rule is called as case type rule. What is the rule? Anything executable is called as a rule in Pega. Okay, so this is called as case type rule. It contains various stages. The one which are in black color are called as stages. Black, I mean, as well as orange. Okay, so what is a stage? Stages represent a certain point in the case life cycle. Okay, if you take an example of placing an order, just a second, guys, there's some disturbance. Yep, I'm back. Sorry. So if you take an example of placing an order in an online portal, like maybe like Flipkart, Amazon, whatever it is. What do? First, you place a request. Whatever product you want to purchase, you'll place a request. Then you'll search for the vendor. Okay, you will check the quotation. Then it will go for approval, and then they'll check whether the stock is available or not to dispatch the product. Then closure. So each of these are the various stages when you're trying to place an order for a product. Similarly, take an example of applying a leave. First thing is you apply the leave details, then it goes to manager for approval, then like it gets approved or rejected. So three stages. So maybe you're applying for a loan. First you'll place a request, then second stage is document submission, third stage is verification, fourth stage is approval or something, fifth stage is releasing the funds for you. So every business process will have a life cycle which you can divide into multiple stages. Okay, so if somebody asks you, okay, how about your loan, where is it? You say like, hey, it's in validation stage, or it's waiting for manager approval. So in general terms, when you speak, how do you say it's in this stage, it's in that stage? You say I'm still waiting for the approval. So stages are nothing but certain points in the life cycle, which we call it as a stage in Pega. So if you look at the current project, in this training, I'm going to teach you on a banking chargeback process. Okay, chargeback. So chargeback is nothing but, for example, maybe you went and you swiped your card somewhere, and instead of swiping maybe $100, the person has swiped $200. So you raise a complaint to the bank saying that, hey, there was a transaction which went like this. I want my funds back, the extra $100 I want back. Or maybe you lost your card. There was a fraud transaction which happened. You raise a complaint. Hey, there's a fraud transaction. It was not done by me. I want my amount back. So they do a chargeback. Okay, they talk to the vendors and they get the money back and they give you. So that whole life cycle is what we are going to do as a part of this training. So look at the various stages involved in this. First thing is, I said new stage means you're raising a new request. So new. Second stage is called as enrichment. In new stage, what you do is I'm going to provide all the details like card number, CVV, first name, last name, when was the transaction done, the transaction ID, the amount for which the transaction was done, XYZ stuff. Then enrichment, you are going to hit the MasterCard system or the Visa system and get more information about the transaction. Okay. Provisional credit. Have you ever raised a complaint to the bank saying that there was some fraud transaction, or there was some I have withdrawn money at ATM, the money didn't dispatch, but it was debited from my account kind of. Then what they do is they first give you a temporary fund. They say that, hey, right away we are giving you a temporary fund. Okay, it will be visible in your account, but you can't withdraw it. Once we validate your scenario, that will be finalized. The amount will be like withdrawable for you. So provisional credit is nothing but temporary credit. They give you some temporary funds, okay, temporarily, and they have some SLA, like within 45 days they'll resolve the issue, and they will either take back the amount if it's your mistake. If everything is good on your side, they're going to finally give you the actual funds to you. Okay, so provisional credit means the bank giving you some temporary funds. So this is another stage. Fourth stage is chargeback. Chargeback means you go talk to the vendor and say, hey, this something happened. Can you please refund the amount? Chargeback. So in chargeback, if the vendor accepts, yes, it's my mistake, and he refunds, well and good, the case gets resolved. But always it's not the happy path, right? So sometimes you can even expect the vendor says, no, it's not my mistake. So the vendor can reject it. So vendor can reject and he can submit some documents and proofs saying that, no, it was not my mistake. Then that is called as representment stage. Okay, the vendor gets back and says, no, it's not my mistake. So, and then if he says not a mistake, and if it is true, you'll go to resolve state. If it's false and you want to get back and say, no, it's your mistake and I have the required proofs, then again it's called second chargeback. and you again try to take the amount from him and finally get resolved. So the ones that are here are the happy parts. The ones that are here are the exceptional scenarios. So these things are called as stages. Okay, all these are called as stages, but the one that is here below the bar and which is in orange color, we call it as alternate stages. Okay, alternate means optional, not always you end up in this path. Okay, so this is called as a stage in Pega. So in a life cycle, you break it into multiple points, and each of the point is called as a stage, like this: new, enrichment, provisional credit, chargeback, representment, and second chargeback. So these are called as stages in a case life cycle. Okay, have a look at this document. It just talks about this example. One second, I just want to just have a look at it and let me know if you have any questions till stages. Who and how the names of the stages are decided. Usually your lead architects will be deciding the name of your stages. See, in always it depends on the size of the project and your organization. If you're working on a very minor project, even a developer will decide. If you're working on a huge project with a huge user base, LSs come into the picture. Okay, so this is the first thing that we do when we are building an application in Pega. Do you want me to scroll? Okay. Now, what do you do after adding stages? The next thing that we do is you have to build steps under them. So steps are nothing but the workflows and the shapes inside them. So you said it is new stage, it's enrichment stage, very nice. You give a name to your stages that are, so this is a high level definition. So what below that? What do you do below that? You will add flows. So collect claim info is the flow which comes here. Enrichment is the flow here. Provisional credit is a flow here. You can give a different name. See, sometimes I give a different name, sometimes the stage name and my flow names are same. It's your choice. Okay. So you can give flow names like this. Now let me open the first flow. When you click on this, you see an option on the right hand side, open process. Let it open. Okay. So this is the flow rule in Pega. Okay, you have some predefined shapes and each of the shape has a predefined purpose. So you have to go with that. Some people keep asking me, can I create new shapes? No, you can't create any new shapes in Pega. You have to go with the predefined shapes and the purpose defined for them. So if you right click and say add, you will see some generic shapes and some advanced shapes like this. Okay, you select a shape, you'll find it on the screen and you can connect it however you want. You can connect it, like you can pull the arrow and you can connect it. We'll learn about that later. So this is a flow. So under each stage you'll be placing flows, and inside the flows you'll have some shapes. Okay, each of the shape has a predefined purpose. So stages, flows. Then what is this? This is the shape which you saw inside the flow. So if you have three shapes, you will see three steps here. Okay, So this is one flow. Now look at the other flow. Let's look at this flow. Excuse me. Look at this flow. It has two shapes. So you see two steps here. The more the number of shapes, the more the number of steps you have. Each step represents a shape in the flow. Okay. So these are the flows, and below which you have steps, which are nothing but the shapes in the flow. Now, can I add one more flow under each stage? Yes, of course. So under new stage, I can have n number of flows. Under enrichment, I can have n number of flows. So you can have multiple flows under each stage. So how do you add a new flow? Just click on this and say add process, new process. So like this, you can add another flow. So once this flow execution is completed, then this flow starts. Okay. So that's where you can add flows. Then, how does a user navigate on this life cycle then? So whenever a user is creating a case, first he will land on the new stage, execute the flow in it, then he'll go to the enrichment stage, execute this, then provisional credit, done, chargeback, done, finally resolved. So this is how the user is navigating on your life cycle. Let me show you how he is moving. I'm just creating a case. Okay, so this is the first thing. Look at this. I'm in new stage. Okay. Once I submit this screen, I'll go to enrichment, then provisional credit, then chargeback, and then resolve. Let me move one screen ahead and show you. I'm not filling everything. I'm just filling one or two. Okay. Look at this. You're done with this, and you're entered into enrichment stage. So this is how the user is navigating. He's just moving on the stages which were defined by you, and he's looking at the screens which were given by you in the workflows. Okay. So this is about stages. Now you have some various options here. What are those? Add process means you want to add a new flow. So is it a flow with a single assignment or with multiple single screen or multiple screens? Then, do you want to add any of the existing or already created flows? Like look at this: chargeback, collect claim info, deny PC, enrichment. All these are the existing flows like collect claim info, enrichment, PC, chargeback. So you can have the same flow in multiple places, right? So it's asking like, would you like to plug in the existing flows? You can select any of these. Otherwise, you can create a new flow. Add parallel process. Add what is parallel? Executing in parallel. So you want two flows to execute in parallel. Then you can say add parallel process. When you say add parallel process, look at this. You will have a line like this, which indicates these two flows will execute in parallel. Rarely we use parallel process. It is only used in scenarios where you don't have any dependency between the two. Like let's say for example, you need approval from IT department and you need approval from HR department. You're a new hire in an organization. Okay, we need approval from two different departments. So there's no dependency, right? One is HR and one is like IT. There's no dependency. So you can push a request to both the departments at the same time and they can approve. So if there's any scenario like that, you go for parallel process. Otherwise, we usually don't choose parallel process. Okay. Then set alternate stage. So like if you suppose you want to move this as a, these are called as alternate stages, right? Suppose I want this to be called as an alternate stage. I'll say set as alternate stage. It'll move here. Look at this. Okay, so that is set as alternate stage. Then delete a stage. You want to delete a stage, delete a stage. Let me refresh this. So those are the various options you saw at stage level. Now look at the options at the flow level. It says start process, means do you want to start the flow always, or you can put a when rule or an expression, and you can say only when this expression or when rule is true, only then you want to start the flow. Until then you don't want to start the flow. So you have an option. Like for example, maybe you are waiting for some information from an external system. So you put a when rule and say if this variable is not equal to null, start. If not, don't start. That way you can put a when rule. Okay, just for example. Open process to open the workflow. Goal and deadline. So you can suppose this has went for approval. Okay, and you want to put some SLA. SLA means service level agreement, which is nothing but putting some timer. Okay, so you want to put some time, like this case has to be approved or rejected in certain amount of time. So you can give that goal and deadline here. Then you expect the person to take some action within that time. If they don't take some action, you automate it. Okay. We will learn about SLAs, then it will be much clear to you. Okay, so those are the options you see at flow level. Then at step level, you see something called as routing. Routing means transferring a case from one person to another person. So let's say when you're applying for a leave, initially you will be filling all the details. Next, it will be pushed to a manager for approval. So you routed your request from you to the manager. Okay, that is called as routing. So you define the routing information here. Case status. What is case status? It defines what is the current status of your case lifecycle. Let's say you placed a request in Amazon and you purchased a product. What does the status of your order say? Dispatched, delivered, okay, like that. You'll see the status, right? Or when you have cancelled, refunded. Those are called as status, which tells you what is happening with my case. Okay, so at every point in the workflow, you'll be defining a status so that the end user can understand what is happening with this case. Like we have discussed just now, cancelled, refunded, dispatched, delivered, kind of statuses you'll give. So we give new. You can see the various status here. These are out of the box, but we create our own status. Okay, don't we can create whatever status you want: new, open, pending, pending approval, pending fulfillment, pending investigation. Okay, there are many status like this. You can create your own status. Okay, now if you look at this case, look at the status new. Okay, after some time it will be pending enrichment. After some time pending chargeback, like that. You can give your own status. Instructions for user. Yeah, just helping the user to understand what to fill here. Instruction means you'll get a line, hidden line here saying that you need to fill your card details here, kind of, just an instruction helper to the user. Because if you think they get confused, you just write some so that they can understand and fill it. Okay, instructions. Again, same concept, goal and deadline. Okay, you can define. Okay, these are the various things that you see it: case life cycle or stages or steps level. But there's something called as optional actions here. What is optional action? See, whenever you're creating a case, or take Amazon or Flipkart or whatever it is, don't you have an option to change the address or add new card details or change your password? Okay, change your phone number. We'll have some certain things, right? They're called as optional actions. Why it's an optional action? See, it's not mandatory for me to change my address or change my phone number whenever I place my order. It's not a part of my case life cycle, right? If I want to place an order, I'll search a product, I'll add it to my cart, I'll do the fund transfer, done. Changing phone number, changing address, or changing my password is not a mandatory action for me whenever I place my order. So such things are called as optional actions. Okay, if required, you do it. So similarly, whenever you're creating a case, we give some optional actions to the user like this. Okay, these are all called as optional actions. If required, he will go here and he will make use of them. Okay, such optional actions you will configure here. And even optional actions can be defined at two levels. Do you want the optional action to be available throughout the case lifecycle? Means from new stage to resolve stage, representment, chargeback, everywhere you want the optional action to be visible, then you set it under case-wide actions. If you put it here, from the beginning of the case till the case is resolved, you will find the optional action. Whereas if you think, no, this optional action only should be under enrichment, then you can define it here. See, there are some optional actions which will be visible only when you're in provisional credit, okay, but not when you're in enrichment or chargeback or other stages. So you can give an optional action at case level or stage level. Okay, these are called as optional actions. We'll talk more in depth about them when we come to hands-on. Just I'm giving a high-level introduction to them. Again, back to the life cycle. Okay. Now there are a few settings that you can make in the life cycle. Let's see some of the important ones. This is general setting. Every case will have something called as urgency. Urgency means the priority of a task. So whenever you create a case, we'll have something called as urgency for the case defined. Are they not displaying it today? Usually they used to display in 8.2, they're not displaying, I think. Anyways, we can display here. Urgency is nothing but the priority of a task. Urgency value usually lies between 0 to 99. Okay, the higher the number, the more importance of the task. Okay, so let's say for example you are a manager and you have 100 cases routed to you waiting for approval. How do you decide which one is of more priority and which I need to act upon first? Urgency tells you. Okay, so urgency value you can keep increasing as the case life cycle progresses. So initial urgency by default every case will have 10. Later you can increase it. How to increase, where to increase, I'll teach you in the practicals. So what is this C hyphen? Whenever you create a case in Pega, the case will have a number, right? So whenever you made a transaction, don't you have a transaction ID or an order ID? Similarly, whenever you create a case in Pega, you'll have an ID like this. Okay, so this prefix is what is defined here. So if you want, you can change the prefix here. Okay, and these things are not necessary. This one I'll tell you when we come to the practicals. Similarly, you can send goal and deadline. You can set a goal and deadline for the whole life cycle. So from the beginning to the ending of the case, it has to be completed within that point of time. Okay, locking, notifications, I'll teach you when we come to, because when I have to talk about them, I have to again initiate the topic. Okay, so I'll teach you those things when we come to those topics. So this is about the case lifecycle stages, steps in them. Do you have any questions still here, guys? Optional actions as well. Alternate stages, regular stages. Oh, someone has pinged me. You used exceptional scenarios. Would there be a limit to those? No. You can add as many alternate stages as you want and as many regular stages as you want. But Pega suggests that not to have more than 7 plus or minus 2 stages. Okay, if you have too many stages, it will be too clumsy. So they suggest you not to have more than those stages. Okay, have a look at this and let me know if you have any questions. I'll be back in a minute, guys. Okay, if no questions, let's move ahead. So this is the life cycle that you will design and people will be navigating on that. Yeah, somebody has a question.
Yeah. I have created one case.
Okay.
It is moving further, and all of a sudden I want to, the customer or somebody is requested to make it is in make urgent. So how we can make it is in urgent? which is not specific to that whole life cycle of the case. The particular case I want to make it as urgent.
Will somebody accept like that? I don't think you'll have a business requirement that way. A single case
See,
for a single customer. See, in that case, why do you want to make changes in the workflow?
Simple, I'll give one requirement like this.
Hmm.
I have requested for the loan foreclosure document.
Hmm.
They made it as it takes 12 working days
They made it as.
as per the process. They said that one it will take the 12 working days to reach
Hmm.
the document.
Hmm.
But actually, I want it because of some other dependencies there. So
Hmm.
that's why I want to make it
See,
an urgency.
Vasan, these kind of things
So,
you have to do it offline. Maybe the person goes and requests, the banker or someone and gets things done. But in the workflow, if you make a change, that is going to affect everyone. So these things are offline things.
yeah, that's what. So if I want to make it in urgency here, then it will reflect for all the cases, right?
Yes, of course, it will reflect for everyone.
So in that case, then how we need to make it only urgent,
No,
only so that
see,
those.
with those things you have to do it offline. For one single case, you're not going to touch the code. So offline, you have to speak
Okay.
to the people and get the things done, but you're not going to touch the code for it. Okay. If there is a business requirement, sometimes what we do is you have platinum partners, gold partners, kind of things. Okay. So what we do is for platinum partners, we put more urgency. For gold partners, we put little less than platinum. For regular partners, you will have very low. So if there's a business requirement like this, we do it. But for a single case, for a single person, we don't touch the code. Okay. Okay, there are some questions here. Would it be true to say urgency is mostly used for exceptional actions that end up in some work queue? No, no, it's not for exceptional actions. See, it's like this. Maybe you send a case to a manager for approval. Okay, let's say, for example, mm, it's a leave plan request. Okay, there are certain maternity leave which are waiting for request. There are certain there are different types of leaves, right? Annual leaves waiting for request, and if somebody expires, you put a leave, right? What is that leave type called as? Okay, somebody has expired and we put a different type of leave, so that is waiting for request. So how will the manager decide which one to approve first? He has like lot of requests waiting. Maybe he was on off and he has like hell lot of requests waiting for his approval. So how does he decide which one to approve? So you should decide, depending upon the leave type, the application should decide which is of high urgency. Okay, so maybe the person death leave you can give of higher urgency, then you can give maternity leave second higher urgency, then the casual leaves and annual leaves you can give low urgency. So when the manager logs into his portal, the cases with highest urgency will pop up at the top and he can approve it. Okay? So in such cases you make use of urgency. So because when look at the manager portals, this is how a manager portal looks like. Of course, you are going to customize it in your real time. This is not the exact look and feel in your real time projects. You will be customizing it. Okay. But whatever it is, the tasks will all be waiting for his approval like this in the queue. Okay. So you will have an option to sort it based on the urgency. So the case with the highest urgency will pop up at the top. He can open and take his actions. Or there's something called as get next work in Pega, like this. So when you say when you click on get next work, this will go and identify which is the case with of highest urgency and highest priority, and this will open the case for you. Then you can approve and reject it. So all these things work based on urgency only. The higher the urgency, the more the priority. Okay. So that's the use of urgency. Is it clear now, guys? Excuse me. Yeah. Perfect. Now let's move ahead. So this is about the case life cycle or stages and workflows, and also about the status. As I told you, we give some status which helps you to understand at what point in the life cycle you are right now. So optional flows and optional actions, we are done with this. Each of these you are going to do hands-on, okay? Then we'll talk about types of flows in Pega. Flow. What exactly is a flow? Flow is just a network of shapes. It's just a network of shapes. Okay. So what does a flow represent? It represents the life cycle. Okay, life cycle of your case. So the user is actually navigating on the stages in which you have flows, and each and every shape in the flow is navigating. On one shape you might have a screen, a second shape you might have a function. So it's actually traveling on the shapes defined in the flow. So we have some types of flows in Pega. There are two types basically: process flows and screen flows. So always, like most popular interview question, what is the difference between a process flow and a screen flow? Okay, so first we'll talk about screen flows. Screen flow means it's a it's like a sequence of screens which have to be worked by a single user end to end. So only in that scenario you choose a screen flow. Like for example, you're giving an online exam. Okay, one question per screen is getting displayed. Okay, so like there are 20 questions and 20 screens keep displaying, and you can move forward and backward. So if I'm not ready to answer question one now, I can keep ahead. I can go ahead and keep moving, and at a later point, once I'm done with answering all the questions, I can come back to question one and I can answer. So there are sequence of screens which is being acted by a single user end to end. Okay, nobody is going to come in between and write the rest of the answers for me, right? So like if you are going to work on it as a single user end to end, then you choose screen flows. Let's say for example, on an exam, or maybe you're uploading your resume in Naukri or any portal. So you will have screens. First screen asks you education details. Second screen asks you professional details. Third screen, address details. Okay. Okay, so like that, you'll have setup screens where you have to give your information. So those things where end to end a single person is going to work, we choose screen flows. Because in screen flows, you cannot route to a different person in the middle of the flow. From the beginning of the flow till the end of the flow, a single person has to work on it, like the examples I have given you. Now let's see the examples which are not suitable for a screen flow. Leave request. You place the request, it reaches the manager for approval. So the manager came into the picture, right, within the life cycle. So in such cases, you cannot use a screen flow. Screen flows are only suitable when, from the beginning till the end, only one person has to work on it. Okay? And you'll now assume this: you created a request, it went to the manager for approval, and so do you need forward and backward buttons here? No, you don't require forward and backward buttons there. So that is not a good example of screen flow, because in screen flow by default you get a forward and a backward button. Like I have told you, in an online exam, you want to come back and change the answers, or maybe uploading your resume, you want to come back and again refill the details, update the details. So in screen flow by default you get forward, okay, backward buttons at the bottom of the screen. So you get forward backward navigation in the screen flow. Okay, and the whole flow has to be acted by the single user. Whereas in process flows you can route to a different person. Okay, here you have only submit and cancel buttons. Either you can move forward or you can cancel the screen and stop there, but you cannot have forward backward navigation in process flows. I mean, like, you can move forward, but there's no backward navigation. Okay, whereas in screen flow you can move forward and backward. Then one second. Acha. My pointer is not moving here. Okay. Then forward backward navigation. Next, screen flow can never be a starter flow. Okay. So what do you mean by starter flow? The flow which starts the case life cycle. If you look at this, whenever I create a case, the first flow, you have so many flows here, right? The first flow which gets executed, we call it as a starter flow. The first flow which initiates your case creation, we call it as a starter flow. So technically, screen flows can never be configured as a starter flows. Okay, whereas process flows, they can be used or configured as starter flows. Okay. Now, what is the starter flow in this case type rule? You might be thinking it's correct claim info. No. See, your case life cycle has already started by the time. So this is not the first flow. There is another flow called as PY start case. It's a Pega's out of the box flow. This is the starter flow. PY start case of your class. Okay, so whenever you create a case in Pega, first this flow gets triggered, and this is going to kickstart your stages. So this will start from here and it will do. So this is the starter flow. This is the first flow that gets triggered. Okay, this is responsible for starting your case life cycle. Okay, so that's a starter flow, and a starter flow can, I mean, a screen flow can never be a starter flow. That's technically not possible. They haven't designed it for that. Okay, process flows can only be acting as a starter flows. Next, routing is not possible. Transferring a case from one person to another person is not possible. In process flows, you can do it because end to end it has to be acted by the same person. Integrations are not possible in this. Means you cannot call a connect soap, connect rest, and all these things in the starter flow. They're not designed to trigger them. Okay. Then routing starters, and then you have these advanced shapes like a split for each. Some of the shapes are not available. Split for each, split join. There are some shapes in Pega. We'll talk about them. Those shapes are not available in screen flows. Okay, so most of the times in real time we choose process flows only. Screen flows are only for specific requirements. Like I told you, a set of screens which has to be acted by the same user. If we have such a requirement, we choose screen flows. Where you need this forward backward navigation, we choose it. Otherwise, it's always process flows. We go ahead. Okay, because it has certain limitations and it's only suitable for certain purposes, like as like you're launching a new you're launching a new product. Maybe you have a set of screens where you want to go forward and backward navigation. So such set of requirements, we choose screen flows. Otherwise, you go ahead with starter flows. Now people ask you again, I mean, like, the recruiter asks you again, suppose there's a requirement like this for me. Whenever the user logs into the application and he says like he says um, it's an online exam. Okay, it's an online exam. He logs into the application and he clicks on a button. Automatically the screen flow has to launch, showing one question per screen. So how do you design it? Because since the first screen, it should be a screen flow because one question per screen, right? But screen flow cannot act as a starter flow. But from the first screen, you need a screen flow. Then how can you design it? Very simple. Have a process flow created. In the process flow, trigger your screen flow. One flow can call another flow. So process flow can be created as a parent flow. Screen flow can be created as a child flow. From the process flow, you can trigger a screen flow. You can display the screens. Okay, so that way you can design your requirements if you have such things. Okay, and there are a few other differences between process flows and screen flows. Uh, we'll talk about them when we come to the shapes in Pega. Like routing is not possible, but on start shape routing is possible. So when I come to shapes in Pega, I'll be teaching you those things. Similarly, some common shapes configurations vary in process flows and screen flows. When you start practicals and when you're working with shapes, I'll be telling you. Okay, so the major differences are this can be acted by a single person. This has forward and backward buttons. This can never act as a starter flow, cannot use routing, no integrations, no split for rich and split joins. Okay, whereas that can do everything. Okay, so these are the two major types of flows: process flows and screen flows. Apart from that, people also ask you what is a subflow. Subflow means one flow is calling the other flow. Child flow is called as subflow. There's nothing more about it. Okay, subflow means you're being called by some other flow, so that is acting as a parent. This is acting as a child. Subflow. Then there's something called a split for each, split join, and spin off. I'll talk about it later because you need to know properties concept before I talk about it. So this I'm leaving. Okay, so this is about flows. And let me show how to create a flow in Pega. You can either create from here, create process flow. You can create from multiple places. Okay, I'm just naming it as test. Okay, in which class. Okay. Now here you will see an option asking, is it a process flow or screen flow? If it's a process flow, no need to check this. If it's a screen flow, you have to click on this and you can have to say, hey, this is a screen flow. If it's a process flow, just leave it. No need to even open this and check. Okay. If it's a screen flow, you have to click on this. Create. So while flow creation itself, you have to tell whether it's a process flow or screen flow. After creating a flow, suppose till today it is a process flow, you want to convert it into a screen flow, not possible. Okay. Only while creation you have to decide whether it's a process or screen flow. Post creation, you cannot change a process flow to a screen flow or vice versa. It cannot be done. It's taking, oh my God. Okay. So let's say, for example, you just opened a flow and you want to know whether it's a process flow or screen flow. How do you know that? Suppose I have given you two flows. I gave you this flow and I gave you this flow. I ask you, tell me which is screen flow. How do you get to know that? Under design tab, you will get to know that. In the design tab, if it's written as screen flow, it's a screen flow. Under design tab, if it's like flow standard, then it's a process flow. Okay. From the design tab, you can get to know that. Okay. So now you can add as many shapes as you want. Just want to show you how a screen flow will have forward and backward buttons and how a regular flow will have submit and cancel buttons. Okay. Achha, I don't think I can execute it from here. I think I need to restart my server. It's very slow. Okay. So if I say run a, I haven't plugged any screens on this yet. Okay. I'm just running it to show the default template, how it looks like. Why is this coming? This is new harness. Okay, I'll talk about this. When we come to harness, I'll talk about it. The flow hasn't started yet. Okay. Your screen flow is yet to start. After the screen, it will start. Okay. I didn't plug any screen, right? So it's like this. Look at this at the bottom. Save and continue. Because it is first screen, you will not have backward button. Only forward button, continue. I click continue. Now look at this. Back, continue. So it's like forward and backward buttons you have. Now if I click on back, I can go to my first screen. Okay. So that's how screen flows will have forward and backward buttons. Continue. And also you can navigate with this. Like this, you'll see your screen names. You can just even click on it and you can move forward and backward. And you have different types of navigations as well. Uh, Other than displaying at the top, you can give like a tree navigation on the left as well. So in screen flows, you can do all that. You can have like these things popping out on the left side and you can navigate. So I'll be teaching you all those during practicals. Now look at the process flow, how they are. They have submit, cancel, save. They don't have backward buttons, whereas ScreenFlow will have a backward button. Okay, so that's the differences between your ScreenFlows and your process flows. Okay, split for each is there. Split join and spin off will not be there. Split for each shape will be there. Spin off and split join shapes will not be visible in ScreenFlows. See, you have here there's split for each, right? Now look at this flow. Look at this. Split join it has. Spin-off means a sub-process shape will have a setting which is called a spin-off. That will not be there in screen flows. You don't even have advanced shapes. Only smart shapes are there. So these shapes at all are not even visible here. These shapes completely, this is not there. Advanced shapes are not there. As I told you, no integration. So these two shapes will not be there. Split for each other, split joints will not be there. So this complete thing is not visible in a screen flow. Okay. So screen flows has their own limitations. Okay. So any questions still here, guys? You'll be learning more and more about the differences as you start practicals. Okay. The configurations on the shapes as well differ. So if you see some options on the shape, when you click on it, uh, you will see a different set of options in the process flows when you click on them. So even these things keep changing. Okay. I'll be telling you during the practicals. So far, let me know if you have any questions. Difference between screen flows and process flows. Okay. Okay. If not, let's move ahead with the next topic, rules, rule set, and versioning. I'll be sharing you PPTs on all these topics, guys. You can go through them, flows, and all these things. Okay. Rules. As I told you, what rule? Any executable piece of code, we call it as a rule in Pega. We call it as rule in Pega. And rules inherit from rule dash class of Pega. So like as I told you yesterday, you remember work dash, data dash, int dash, rule dash. So all the rules inherit from rule dash class of Pega. Okay. So what are the various types of rules you have in Pega? There are many types. Okay, I'm going to speak about few types of rules. Flow is a rule. Okay, then let's take some of the generic ones. I'll take decision. You have decision table, tree, map. They are rules, decisioning rules. Then you have something called as activity. It's a collection of functions and methods. It's a rule. Then UI rules, you have something called as flow action, section, some UI rules. You have some validation rules. Okay. Um, just speaking about few things. Okay. So what else? Yeah. I mean, like rest you may not be aware of even if I speak right now. They may not be so much familiar for you, so I don't want to talk about them. So let's take few rule types like this: flows, decisioning. Maybe you can take soap service. It's a rule. Okay. So these are the various rules in Pega. Okay. And there are many guys. I'm just trying to pick few things which you can easily connect. So when I say validation, you can connect to it, right? When I say decision, you can connect to it. So few things which you can connect, I'm defining here. So there are some rule types. Okay. Each of the rule has its own purpose. What is a flow? It's just a network of shapes. Decision. It'll have some when conditions, if else if logics to take some decisions in your application. Activity, some functions and methods to manipulate your data. Flow actions, UI screens, sections, UI screens, validation to validate the content, service for integration. So like this, you'll have different types of rules in Pega and each rule has its own purpose. Okay, so these are called as rules and rule types. So all these are rule types. Okay, so there are many rule types in Pega. If you go here and you see, each of these is a category, and if you expand, you will see rule types under them. All these are rule types. Look at this. Under each category, you have n number of rule types. That's why I spoke only about few which you can connect. Okay, they are all rule types. There are n number of rule types. Then what is rule set? Then rule set. It's a collection of rules is called as a rule set. So why do you need a rule set? Let's say, for example, you have created 10 rules in your application. Okay, now you want to deploy it. You want to deploy it to QA, UAT, or production. If it's 10 rules, okay, you will remember all the 10 rules and you will deploy without missing anything. Well and good. Now just assume that I have created 10 rules. My colleague has created 20, and somebody else has created 30, and somebody else has created 40 as a part of this sprint. Now, do you think everybody will remember all the rules they have created? They might miss couple of rules when they're deploying, because when you have created a huge set of rules, you may not remember everything, right? So what we do is we try to package them. We try to package them by placing it in something called as rule set. Rule set is just a collection of rules. Okay, it's like dumping all the documents in a folder, and if somebody asks you that something, that documents, you just give them the folder. So you make sure that none of the documents are missing because you're giving the whole folder, and the folder contains all the required documents. Similarly, rule set is nothing but a collection of rules. Okay, if you put everything in a rule set, it's like you're packaging it and it's easy to deploy. You make sure you're not losing any rules when you're deploying. That is rule set. Now, okay, very good. You have designed, like in total, you have designed 80 rules today. Okay. Now, what happens tomorrow? The client comes back and says, hey, I need an enhancement on this UI screen. Till today, it's a text box. I want it to be a drop down. Can you please change it? Okay, fine. You're going to change it. Now, you have deployed the code. Now, what the client came and, hey, this is not working properly. Can you please roll back the code change? Okay, you will roll back because it's text box to drop down and drop down back to text box. You can change it. Now assume that there's a major functionality. The client said update it to something, and now once it is in prod, they said no, it's not working fine. Can you please roll back your changes? If there are n number of rules involved in the rollback, do you think you will remember all the changes that you made to roll back? No, you don't remember the whole previous version. What was there? You don't remember. So what you have to do is you have to always maintain a backup copy of the rules. So here comes the concept of Acha, what did I do? Okay, anyways, here comes the concept of rule set version. So version is nothing but to keep a backup copy of your rules. Okay, so today if I have designed my code and I deploy it, I call it a 01 version. Again an enhancement came. I'll save as the rule into 02 version. I'll update my changes. Again there's a defect or a bug. I'll save as the rule into 03 version and I'll make my changes. Now when the client comes back and says, hey, this recent deployment is not working fine, can you please roll back your changes? Then I'll just delete 03, then I'll have 02 and 01 in my machine. And Pega always picks the highest version, so 03 gets executed. So this way you have to maintain versions or the backup copy of your rules, because tomorrow if you want to roll back your changes, you can easily roll back. Okay, so we have something called as rule set versioning in Pega. And the pattern of the rule set version name is nn-nn-nn. So it's like 01-01-01. Okay, so we call the first one as major patch, sorry, major version. Second one is called as minor version, and third one is called as patch version. Okay, and regular deployments we do like this: 02, 03, so until 99. After 99, minor will get increased, and again this starts from 1, and that goes till 99. So once you reach this 99, 99, then major gets increased. Sorry, 02, one moment, 199, 99, 02, oh yeah. So this way you keep increasing. Okay. Now, now people keep asking you, when do you increase your patch versions, when you increase minor, when do you increase major? So usually when you have small requirements or defects, we keep increasing the patch versions. When you have minor functionality changes, we keep increasing the minor versions. When there's a drastic change in the application, you increase your major versions. Okay, so but most of the times I see we keep increasing only the patch versions. For regular small deployments, we usually only increase the patch versions 01, 02, 03 and so on. We keep increasing this last numbers only usually. Okay, rarely we go with major and minor changes. Okay, so this is how we maintain a backup copy of the rules, by maintaining this rule set version concept. Okay, and Pega always picks the highest version of your rule. So let me open the rule set version and show you. This is my application rule set version. Okay, look at this 010101. This has 187 rules in it. Okay, let me open any Pega's rule set. Let me open some Pega's rule set and show you. Okay, let's take. Look at this. Because this is Pega 8, okay, major change, right? It's like they have made a major application changes. So they increased their major patch. 08 it is, because it's Pega 8. If you see Pega 7, it will be 07. If you see Pega 6, it will be 06. Okay, 08, 01, 01, 08, 01, 02. Again, they have increased their minor here. Okay, if they go in a sequence, it should go till 99, but maybe there's a minor functionality change. You can see even there are 778 rules, so there's some minor functionality changes, so they increase to 02. Okay. 02, 02, 03, like this they have increased. Okay, it's not mandatory to go in a sequence. That is the reason we keep jumping and skipping some versions in between like this. So this is rule set version. Any questions still here? Guys, yeah, I'll speak about these options: application validation and rule set validation, and checkouts and check-ins we'll discuss. But any questions still here?
Nikhil, I have one question here.
Yeah, please.
How, how, how the rule will be executed on what condition?
So there is something called as rule resolution algorithm in Pega. So based on the algorithm, Pega will identify the right rule, right version for that context. I'll explain you that algorithm. The 10-step
In
algorithm.
future, in
Mhm.
future class I will get algorithm, right?
Yeah, mostly tomorrow's session we'll discuss about it. Any other questions still here, guys? Okay. Okay, let's talk about application validation and rule set validation. So, uh, it's like this. You have rule sets, right? So one application will have multiple rule sets. So you suppose your rule set, your application name is Chargeback, right? So you will have a rule set called as Chargeback Biz. Means you'll put all business rules in that. Another rule set called as Chargeback FW. All framework layer rules will be in this. Another rule set will be just Chargeback implementation rules. Another rule set will be Chargeback int. Means all integration rule sets will be in this. So like that, you'll create multiple rule sets, each for a different purpose. Okay. Now assume that there is a rule, there's so many rules, right? First thing is you have to tell Pega that what is the hierarchy. Means there's a like how you have parent and child relationship between classes. Similarly, even between rule sets, you have to tell Pega what is the parent and what is the child. So, which rule set can call rules in which other rule set. So you have to define the hierarchy. Why is it hierarchy needed? Even sometimes don't just assume that there's a rule called as get employee details in CBIS. Same rule might be even existing in CB. So how will Pega know which one to pick? Because both of them are my application rule sets. So how will Pega know? So you should always define which is the highest, like the order or the priority of your rule sets. Like who is the parent, who is the child kind of relationship you have to define. So what we do is when you open the application, so we place application rule sets like this in an order we'll be placing. So this order defines who is the parent and who is the child. So the one that is at the top, number one, is the innermost child, like your implementation layer. Okay. The one that is in the last is like a parent, like your organization layer. Okay, even if you look at the names, this is having an organization layer name, ICIC int, ICICI, it's an organization name. This is the implementation layer. So this is a child rule set, this is its parent, this is its parent, and this is its parent. So if there is a rule existing in chargeback rule set, ICIC, ICICI int, then Pega will first pick the one that is lying in the chargeback rule set. Okay, if not found in this, in this. If not found in this, in this, and then in this, like this. So this order does matters. So if you want Pega to follow this order while picking your rules, then you have to say application validation. Means in the application rule, I'm defining the order of my rule sets. This is a feature that came up since Pega 7. Okay, in prior versions of Pega, we didn't have this application validation concept. So what we used to do is we used to tell Pega, hey, this is my dependent rule set. Once again, this is Pega's rule set, right? I'm not able to change it. So we used to do like this. If you expand the rule set version, it'll ask you what are your prerequisites, means on which rule sets you are dependent on. So we used to differ here. Even why a rule set stack is important is you might be dependent on other rule sets as well. So maybe to execute get employee details, I need some report which is lying in this, or maybe I need an activity which is lying in this. So you're dependent on the rules which are lying in other rule sets as well. So even for that purpose, you have to define your rule set stack or rule set prerequisites. So in earlier versions of Pega, when we didn't have this application validation concept, we used to define like this. In order to execute the rules in this version, I need these versions. You have to define like this. Okay. So we should do like that. But in today's world, you have to use only application validation. This is completely like deprecated. Only just for backward compatibility, they are giving you this option. Going forward, you'll not have this option. Okay, so that is application validation and rule set validation. One interview question which you can expect on rule sets. Okay, application validation means you define the order of your rule sets in the application rule, and the order decides the priority of the rules getting picked. Then how to lock a rule set and all these things I'll teach you as we keep doing the project. You're going to lock your rule sets. All those things we'll be doing. So practically I'll be showing you those things. So any questions still here, guys? Bulk check-in, locking, rule set and prerequisites we discussed. Okay, now that's it for today, guys. Most probably day after tomorrow means like the next session, Monday and Tuesdays are off. Okay, so the next session would be on Wednesday. I would like to start the practicals from Wednesday, and I want you people to clear the fee payments, install the software, and be ready. Please install the software as early as possible, because if you get into any issues, I'll have some time to fix it or look into it. Okay, so once you receive the software, install it. How to install, I'll be sharing you an installation guide. And in case if you're already holding any other version of Pega in your machine, please open the folder where you have installed it. Maybe if you have installed it in your C drive, go to C drive like this. You will find a folder called as PRPC Personal Edition. Select Shift Delete. That's the way we uninstall Pega. Okay, then it's gone, and you'll find 3 icons in your desktop related to Pega. Delete them as well. Then restart your machine and reinstall the software which I'm sharing you. Okay, so because too much of theory will be too boring for you, and I think we have enough theory to start the practicals. I don't want to discuss more theory. I want to get into practicals now. Okay, so yeah, I'll confirm you whether we'll have a session tomorrow or not, because the next all I want to start with the practicals only. I don't want to take more theory. So I'll just update you whether we have a session tomorrow or not. I'll WhatsApp you. Okay, so that's it, guys. Any other questions? Okay, if not, let's log off then. Thank you so much. Have a nice day. Have a nice weekend. Bye bye.